daf is daf Samach Amar Aleph. Excuse me. And I guess we can say Happy New Year, as the Rebbe told Rebbe Leber Groner that Hashem Yispar B'Ksoiv Amim. Hashem counts also the Goyish dates, so we can say Happy New Year. Anyway, we are up to the Gemara on top of the page. The last thing we learned about was if somebody sent a torch in the hands of a was been responsible in the Cheder Shait for cotton, and basically we said is that you in a court of law you'd be exempt, but in the court of the Abish's heaven you still have to pay compensation. But if you sent in the hand of an intelligent person, they're the ones who are responsible. Okay, so the Gemara said, they're the ones who are responsible. Top of the page, second line from the top. The one who used the word liba, it says in the Mishnah then afterwards that if another person, a third party, came along and he fanned the flame and caused the fire to increase, that person is liable. And we use the word liba, fanning the flame. So the one who uses the word liba lemishtam is not making an error. You use the word niba for the same thing is not making an error, for exposing the flame. Hashem descended there in the snare, and it said of open flame. Niba, as the word open, the chsiv says boire niv sosaim. He created the openness of your lips when your lips open and close. Okay, then it says, but what happens? The Mishnah concludes. What happens if lipsa haruach? It was the wind that caused the fire to be fanned and flamed. Then kulam bim tur, and then you're all exempt. Says the Gemara. Torah we learned, and this Gemara here we learn an important halachas, as we'll see in a minute, regarding Hilchos Shabbos, which is quite interesting, as we'll get to in a minute. Liba v'lipsa haruach. What happens if liba, and it was a joint effort between you and the wind? So it says in the Braisa, im yesh bilibuyav kedel bois. If you're blowing the fire was sufficient to make the fire travel to the next door, then chayiv, you're obligated. Even though there's a wind there, but if not, potter. If let's say you couldn't have done it on your own, you need the assistance of the wind, you are potter. So we're going to ask you a question on Shabbos. One of the malach on Shabbos needs the wind. When you're winnowing and you toss up the stalks and the husk comes off by the wind, you need the wind. It's a joint effort. And Shabbos, you're chayiv. So how come over here it's a joint effort? We say you are potter. By Shabbos, we say if you win on the wind, you're chayiv. So we have a few answers in the Gemara here. Abaye says, you're right. On Shabbos, you are chayiv, even though you didn't do it on your own, you did it together with the wind, and you're merely a cause, you are chayiv. And Hachamais, we're talking about here, that you were not even a cause, you did nothing. You only blew on one side, but that couldn't do anything. And it was the other side that the wind did it entirely. You did nothing. It wasn't a joint effort. Had it been a joint effort by Nazikin, maybe you'd be chayiv as well. Even though it's a cause, you'd be chayiv. Rava says another answer, but a similar principle. You blew it with a normal. When you started to blow, it was a normal. Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Till now?
Yep, it's okay.
Was like, did you hear me part before?
Yeah,
No,
we did. Just
quiet.
for 1 second, you paused for like the 10 seconds.
Oh, it happened by itself. Okay, sorry. Comes along Rava, and the Rava says, Rava says the principle is the same. That by here also, if there's a joint effort of the wind, you would be chayiv, even though you're merely sort of a cause. You step back a little bit, but nevertheless, over here is talking about where you did nothing. What do you mean you contributed nothing? You're blowing with a normal wind, and nothing would have happened. And then suddenly, out of there's a gust of wind, something you didn't anticipate. This very strong gust of wind came and fanned the flame. That's why you're not chayiv, because you really did contribute nothing. And Abzeda says a similar principle. You're going to tzamra tzmure. You didn't really properly blow it. When you're breathing, you blow out some air, or let's say, you just normal breathing and some warm air comes out of your mouth. That's not called breathing. That's not called fanning a flame at all. So again, all three are basically saying is in our case is the wind who did everything. If it would have been a joint effort just like Shabbos, you would be responsible here as well, even though you're merely causation. The Chiddush is Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi comes along and makes a new principle. Regarding Shabbos, if you need the wind to help, really, then you're sort of a cause. And a cause on Shabbos, it seems that you're a chayiv. The Melech's Machshava doesn't tell you. The main thing is, what was your goal? And you achieved your goal. You're merely a cause. When it comes to the zikin, if you're merely a cause, you are pater. So Rashi takes the Gemara literally. But when it comes to Shabbos, it seems the way Rashi learns, a cause, you're chayiv. As long as your purpose was accomplished, whatever you tried to achieve, even though you're only a grama, you're a chayiv, which is very important in Hilchos Shabbos. The problem is that in Masechta Shabbos, we talk about extinguishing a fire, and there it says if you put water, if the fire is coming, you put water there, even though you're causing the fire to be extinguished, it's only a gram kibui. You're only causing it to be extinguished, and therefore you are potter. So we see clearly from there by Shabbos, grama is potter. How can you tell me here that in Shabbos grama is chayiv because melech is machshavas and you accomplish your melacha? So Rashi, who takes the Gemara literally here that grama and Shabbos is chayiv, will say that kibui is different, is an exception. Why? Because the melacha of kibui is unique. That generally speaking, when you extinguish a fire, mahatari, you didn't do an avera. Because when are you over an avera? Only if it's a melacha, according to most poskim, only if it's a melacha tzichel gufa. You're doing the melacha exactly with what you need. Most cases when you extinguish a fire is because you don't want the fire. You want to save your pots and pans over there. You want to save the rest of the wick. You want to save the oil. So you're doing the malacha with one thing, extinguishing the fire, but you want for another purpose. That's called the malacha shein sichel gufa, and matayri not chayiv. So kibbutz is only with the rabbanon. The only time that mahatayri you chayiv for extinguishing fire is if you have a piece of wood, it's burning, and you extinguish it because you want the part that's burning to turn into coal, so that you use it as coal. So therefore, the extinguishing and the part that you want is the same. But or a wick, you're lighting it and extinguishing straight away, so that when you light it again, it should burn better. So you're doing it for that very section of the wick that you're extinguishing. Otherwise, every time you extinguish a fire, it's a malacha she'eina tzichel gufa. You're extinguishing this part of the fire to save the rest of the wick, save the rest of the oil, save the pots and pans that shouldn't get burnt. So therefore, since on your rabbanon over there, we'll say grama is permitted, but all other dinim of Shabbos, grama is forbidden. We most paskin that grama on Shabbos is meferish mutter. And what's pshat over here when it says Blechem Machshavas? Zohar is an exception, as the Rosh says in the Rishonim. Zohar is an exception. You know why? Because that's how the malacha is done. How do you do winnowing? You need the wind together with you tossing in the air, that it works together. That's the malacha. If that's the formula for the malacha, then of course, if you're partnership, you're chayiv. But all other malachas, if you're only a cause, you're potent. This is very important in Hilchos Shabbos. For example, you open your fridge on Shabbos, and now warm air comes in, causes the motor to go on. You take water from your hot urn because you took out some of the water, whatever it is. It starts heating again in a couple. And we say you're allowed to do that. Most people hold you're allowed to do that on Shabbos. Why? Because you're only a grama. What's the definition of a grama? And one of the definitions of grama is a delay. It doesn't happen instantaneously. And that's another shot that some people want to say. When you're zoyde beruach, as you toss it in the air, the wind knocks it out straight away. So therefore, that's not really a grama, because it's happening instantaneously. When is a grama? If it doesn't have to happen straight away, if it happens a few seconds later, then I didn't do the malacha, I caused the malacha to happen. And that's why you're allowed to open the fridge, and that's why you're allowed to open the urn. Even though some people are machmed, they will not open the fridge unless the motor is working, or the urn only while it's on, or opening a stove only while the fire is on. But the vast majority are not makpid. Why? Because we say it's a gather of grama. You're only a cause, and what's the definition of cause? The delay. And even though sometimes you take water out of the urn and straight away it goes on, but that wasn't anticipated. So it's and you don't really need it. So therefore we say and all that kind of stuff. But it's a grama. That's a permitted. So we learned the Gemara here that different than Rashi. We learned like the Rosh and most Rishonim that over here is a grama. It's merely a cause. And Shabbos is the same thing. Winnowing is an exception. Not Shabbos is different than Zikin, but winnowing is different because that's how the malacha is done. So interesting that such an important law of Shabbos, you won't find in Masechta Shabbos. The Gemara just mentions Gram Kibui. That's it. Where do you find this Gemara? Here in Bava Kama. The last thing you would ever imagine. In the middle of cows, goring cows, or people, fires going out there, suddenly we're talking about the principle. This is not just a minor detail of Shabbos. This is a very important principle of Hilchos Shabbos. It's amazing. That's why we have to go through the whole Shas to get a good overview of what's going on there. Says the Mishnah further, somebody sends a fire across, you light a fire in your backyard, it goes across to the next door neighbor, eats wood, or you have any stones or for sand, Remember it says, the fire goes out, and it catches onto thorns, so it goes out, it leaves you premises. And and it ate up the pile over there, like the granary, kama, or the grass while it's growing, sada, or the field. The law is shalom. You have to pay for the entire thing. Hamavis the one who lives. Amar Rava says, Rava, why do we need so many examples in the pasuk? Lama because I'm on a creating thorns, godish, a pile, kama, and the grains while it's growing sudden in the field. 4 different examples. Give us one. That's sufficient. Saying what we need all 4. Because I'm on a creating thorns. I mean, I would have thought creating the chai by thorns. Rachmanim b'shum d'shchiach ej gabayu, because there's a fire there. Ushchiach the pasha, because thorns burn so easily. Therefore, it's usually pure negligence. All these forest fires, a lot of times, it's pure negligence. They had a campfire and they didn't extinguish all the embers. So because you're negligent, it makes sense. You have to pay. Abel Gadish, usually a pile, it doesn't burn. Usually when you have a pile of grains, it doesn't get, you don't burn it. And generally people don't light it for nothing. So therefore, probably it was an accident. Maybe you would be exonerated. Aim alone. Because I'm on a Gadish by a pile, I mean a Gadish money, you know why you have to do it, incurring a big loss. I will create thorns. What's the value of thorns? The hefsim we don't use it to start a fire. It's about it. So it has very little value. Aim alone. Maybe you don't have to pay. Why do you need to tell me about the stalks growing? Ma kama begoli, just like it's exposed, I've called begoli. We learned before, we hold that tomun, if it's hidden, and we learned about a person who put a sheet on top of the thing and he tried to help the guy, but actually he hurt the guy because he won't get paid for it. Tomun, if it's hidden, you don't have to pay. It has to be exposed, like kama. Rabbi Yehuda, the Mechayiv is given he holds that Yechayiv kama lamali. What does he do? The word kama. The Rabbis call anything which is tall. According to Taisi, we're talking about trees, so way above the ground. According to Rashi, we're talking about even people, livestock. You have to all these things you have to pay for, even though they're common. But how do they know to teach things that grow way above the ground? The word oy. Rabbi Yehuda oy, he used the oy mit. You would have thought that maybe that you have to burn all of these things, a godish together with a kama. If you set a fire and all the things burn, that's when you're responsible. Otherwise, you're not. That says oy, each one individually. No, says the Gemara. How do they know that it's separated? Even though sometimes we before we mentioned Rabbi Yonis and Rabbi Yosha argue whether oy means and or, but let's try to accommodate everybody. Those who say that you need an oy, otherwise you would say and means you need both together. How do they know to separate it? They learn from oy hasoda. There's a number of oys in that pasuk. It says oy hakama, oy hasoda. From the second oy, they learn to separate it. But Rabbi Yehuda, the first oy they used to teach you anything which rose way above the ground, the second oy to separate. Rabbi Yehuda, what does he do with the second oy? Because he did the kosher chamana oy hakama, kosher oy hasoda. He learned to come about things way above the ground. First oy he teaches to separate. The second one is just being poetic. Why say a field? What happened? He didn't burn food, the grains, the crop. Let's say it burned the plowed land. Let's say it ruined the stones around it. And that's it's a teacher they're also responsible. Just say sada, all the other ones. We still need it. Because I thought only those things that grow in the field. I wouldn't have rather attributed to stones. I would have thought things that grow in the field. Because it says so many different examples, we know now that sada means to include something beyond which of those words, the examples we gave in the pasuk earlier. Now that we mentioned this pasuk, the Gemara says, you don't have any punishment coming to the world, only when there are evil people in the world. But once the Eibusha decides to punish the world, the first ones that suffer are the tzaddikim. The first ones that suffer are actually the tzaddikim. We actually had this Gemara similar in Gemara Shabbos and the Nuns, where it talks about the Beis Hamikdash. First, we're going to let the older people go, and then we decided to punish them first, allowing people to sin because they are responsible. The Gemara there says they're actually responsible by not protesting and by not chastising the people who are misbehaving. They take responsibility because koisar revim. Shenemar, and here it says that it doesn't give that reason. It just says the pasuk that's leading for Shenemar. We live for this pasuk. He says to the fire, the wrath of Hashem is against the kaitzim, the thorns don't bear any fruits. These represent the Rishayim. But Hashem has as display his wrath only when there are these thorns around. But the but who gets punished first? The tzaddikim. How do I know that? Shenemar says and already the gadish was already destroyed. The gadish is a granary, the pile with the silo where you keep all the existing grains. That represents tzaddikim. They multiply, fruitful, and they benefit others. V'achar Gadish, I never say you will eat. It says Elanechel Gadish. Achar Gadish is already consumed, already eaten. I mean, the tzaddik already punished. The Eile Chaim and this pasuk adds a bit more, and he goes very much in detail. I don't think he quotes this Gemara, but he goes explains each example in the pasuk, and he believes that the first example is Tanoika Shabbeis Ram and children in school. He believes that the children in school are the first ones that get punished because they're the ones who hold up the generation, and therefore they get punished. And if so, it makes sense then why our Gemara doesn't talk about the reason why tzaddik get punished because they didn't fulfill their obligation of chastising, because you don't expect kids in school to be chastising elders. But in our Gemara, it doesn't say that at all. At all, that thing about Tanoika Shabbeis Ram and children in school. Tanab Yosef. It says they told them that you shouldn't leave your house until the morning. We're talking about by the Mitzrayim or the night of Makkah B'charis. Don't leave your house until the morning. Keep is why? Because once the Malach HaMavet had permission, open and slather, he makes no distinction tzaddikim l'shoyim. Like we said before, when Hashem is angry, He punishes everybody. In fact, we said tzaddikim get punished first. Now we're just saying that it's equal, and the Malach HaMavet punishes everybody. And now He says maskal tzaddik again. Now He says the Malach HaMavet also begins with tzaddikim. Remember, it says v'chilati mimcha, I will punish amongst you tzaddik v'rasha. Which name does it say first? Which say first? The tzaddik. Bocher Rabbi Yosef kula hainami lein doimin. Rabbi Yosef started to cry. So what? Tzaddikim are worthless. That the tzaddikim get punishing before the Rishayim. Actually, it's a benefit. Because of the terrible times that are happening, Nes of a tzaddik. Tzaddik dies first, so you shouldn't even have to witness the terrible things. Like we learned the Gemara by Sanhedrin, that even though Mashiach will come, it was a great thing, but there'll be such tzaras at that time. This Amar says, I don't want to be there at the time when to watch the Chevli later. And we had also Avraham Avinu. He passed away before he saw the terrible things that Esau was doing. Something similar. A person should enter a city when it's daylight, and leave when it's still daylight. Don't travel when it's nighttime. Remember, it says, don't leave your houses until the morning. Don't go by day. Here Rashi says, what's the reason why you shouldn't travel at night? Because of mazikin and robbers. And it makes no difference if you're a local or if you're a tourist coming in, because the Ganabim don't distinguish. Tosfos, however, learns that the reason is because of potholes. Therefore, he says, look at the pasuk. It says here, Yechonis Adam. I mean, first you're arriving in the city and then you're leaving. So we're not talking about local. We're talking about an immigrant or a tourist who's coming in. They have to be careful because we're talking about potholes. But a local can travel at night because at night, you know where all the potholes are. And that's the main time. Others argue. There's a plague in the city. This is what you do with the COVID. You should go into your house. Gather in Shalom. It says, if there's a plague, stay home. And it says in the pasuk that the Leich Ami Boy Bechaderecha. Go, my people, and go into your house. Close the door behind you. The third pasuk we bring, Mechutz to Shakel Cherev, outside the sword is rampant, inside is still fear. This is completely describes the situation we had from 2020, 21, 22. What do you mean all these psukim? Maybe at night you shouldn't go outside. By day, like. In other words, Tashma, there was no point in having a curfew at night. The curfew should be all the time. You should stay home. Close the door behind you. And it doesn't say night, day. We're not scared inside. If you're scared to stay home, maybe it's better to go outside and mill about. Maybe it's better to be in public with other people. Maybe being outside with other people is a much better way of dealing with it. Outside is prevalent the sword. Inside is fear. Even though inside is fear, it's much worse outside. Stay home. At the time when there was a plague, and Hashem displayed his anger, he closed all his windows, he sealed his windows. The Chesiv says, so it's clear the Gemara had an idea, and we also had an idea of being contagious, that things spread, and therefore you should stay away from other people, which is quite interesting. Because we didn't realize that medically till only in the last few centuries. Don't know what we learned. Rabbi, there's a famine in the city, you should leave the city. It says, I'm not sure how you bring it out from the pasuk when Hashem used then as a test, but I guess the test was not that he had to leave Israel. The test was that he made it hunger. Here I promised you all this grand, presents. You'll be wealthy, a gadol shmecha, bracha, and then turned out to be it was a disaster. It was a famine. But when there is a famine, how do you deal with the famine? By leaving the country. So the test maybe wasn't going to Mitzrayim. The test there was the fact that there was a famine. Well, it says also that by the case of the famous four lepers, the Amarnu another year, and that's when they realized that around that the people there were they were fled. They said, look, what's the point of staying here? We're lepers and we're out of the city, but there's a famine. We're gonna die here anyway. And it says, Amarnu another year, but of the year, but Master Sham, we're gonna die anyway. So let's go to the camp of the maybe they'll have pity on us. My boy, what are all these like a seven when there's no doubt in seven so maybe we'll leave the town. I will hate these but you're putting your life in jeopardy. Loy, maybe it's not worth to leave the town, stay here, even though there's a famine. Toshma. Therefore, we bring a pasuk where the lepers say, let's go. And let us go and form the camps of Aram. And there, at least, there's a chance we might survive. And maybe we won't. But here, we'll definitely die. So we learn, if there's a plague in the city, don't travel in the middle of the road. But is traveling in the middle of the road. Because he has open slather. Rather, they keep him, there's just a masculine head, he's open slather. Therefore, you should be discreet. Keep out of the way. Shalom be, but there's peace in the city. Don't go on the side where the Malach Hamavis lurks. The keep less of just a chabi chabuya. The Malach Hamavis hides the mask and he travels. Go in the middle in front of everybody. So I learned. There's a plague in the city. Al Yechanis Adam Yochil Beis HaKnesses. Don't go alone in shul. Shemalach Hamavis Mavkisham Caleb. The Malach Hamavis there stores his tools of trade in a shul. Now, what does that mean? So no, a shul that's not functional. A shul that exists and could be functional, but people don't bother going to shul. They don't learn. And the kids don't learn there and they don't have a minion there, then that the punishment is that Malach Mavis puts his tools of trade in that place there. Somebody learned. Klavim, Boichim, the dogs are crying. Malach Mavis, they realize that Malach Mavis is in town. Klavim, Mesachim, the dogs are happy. Elio, nobody, Elio comes to town. Less than the cave. Only there's no female dogs. If there's a female dog there, then obviously that's why they're all happy. Nothing to do with the Malach Hamavis. Yossi, Rab Ami, Rab Ami, I remember there's a story, I think it was a Malbim or somebody else, who was a Rav in Germany. And then he went to another city and they gave him a very hard time. So he told him the following story. He said that he's one day walking down in the town of Germany and he walks by this bar and he sees a guy there, red cheeks and everything else, inebriated, but he was very depressed. He walked in and he said to the guy, "What's the matter?" And the guy says, "Look, I'm the Sultan and nobody's listening to me in this town. Such a firm place. They all do go to shul, they all do pay the mitzvahs. I have nothing to do here." Then this Rav, the guy went to London, the city in London, and he sees the same guy, but he's running pell-mell. Tries to stop him in the street, and the guy says, "No, I have no time to talk to you." He says, "Why not?" So this Sultan says, "Look, I'm so busy here, I don't have a minute to breathe. Sorry, everybody's listening to me. I got to tell them what to do." Then he comes back to Berlin, and he sees the guy again in the bar, but this time he's totally inebriated, lying on the floor. Went over to the Sultan, "What's going on?" He said, "Oh, this town's a mechayah. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to lose a finger. The people in the town are doing all the work for me. They themselves do all the Avedas. They don't even need a Sutton to get them to do Avedas." So therefore, because they don't have a shul, they don't go to shul. They have all these institutions and nobody pays any attention to it. Yosef Rabami, Rabasi, Kamerich Nachar. The Rabami Rabasi said, Mar, the teacher, Amalei, Lema Mashmait. One of them said, "Tell us over a halacha." One of them said, "Tell over us pulpul," and one said, "We want to hear a story." His first intuition was, "You know what? I'm going to say a story." Because look at Chumash, first starts with Bereishis, then we move to Hachei Zelechem. The other student didn't let him. Then he started saying pulpul. The other guy didn't let him. You know what this is like? Situation here is a person that has two wives. One is young and one is old. The Kana, it's how you Kana. Yalda, the young one, he has some white hairs in his beard. She starts picking out all the white hairs, pulling them out so that her husband should look young. The Kana, the older woman, the older woman is pulling out all the black hairs because she wants the husband to look as old as her. Otherwise, she looks so old compared to her husband. Comes out a while, suddenly he's bold because they all pulled out all his hair. Oh, I can't say anything. He said, since you guys can't sort it out, I'll say something which combines pupil or halacha together with agadatim. The fire went on its own, and it caught onto thorns. On its own. Shalom, the one who made the fire has to pay. What do you mean they made the fire? Just said it came on its own. Hashem said, I made the fire that I'm going to have to compensate you for the fire that I made. I need, it says the age of B'tzion, I burned down Yerushalayim. As it says, each of the age of B'tzion, there's a fire in Yerushalayim and it burnt up the Yisaitis. And he also even though it was the people who sinned who caused the fire to happen, it's like I made the fire and I am going to rebuild it in fire. It says, I'll be a fire on. Well, the covered so that's the Gadatza. But even though Hashem did it, I'm going to fix it up. Shmaita, what's the halacha? It starts off saying that the fire went on its own, you lit the fire and went on its own. The siyam is and then it comes on and says, that you lit, as if you made the fire happen. This relates to the argument you had in Shlokish Rabbi Yechanan. Is fire considered your possession? It's some distant from you, or fire is your energy? Fire is just like your arrows. You lit the fire. You pushed the fire next door. Something a little further relating to argument here, like David very much desired the drink of water, and he said, "Who will bring me water from Beis Lechem? Who will bring me water from Beis Lechem near the gate?" The next passage then says, "Vayivaku shloishes hagiboyim b'machlopeishim." 3 of the strong ones broke through the camp of Plishtim. And they did David's bidding. They did David's bidding, and when they brought it to David, he refused to drink it, and he poured it out before Hashem. So first of all, we decided, I got it to that it wasn't David wanted water, he wanted Torah. He wanted halacha. And who sits next to a gate? The Bezin. So he wanted to ask the Bezin a shayla. We have 3 opinions what actually happened there. What was the question that David Melech had in the middle of the time of war? He wanted to know if he's going to compensate all the Jewish farmers that they ruined their fields for this war. He wanted to know if he has to compensate them also for things that were hidden, stashed away, underneath or hidden. You want to know what's Allah? The Bezin said whatever they said, we're not sure. That's one opinion. Rabbi Huna said a straight out question. What happened was the Plishtim were hiding in the piles and the silos and the granaries of the Jewish farmers. So they were going to set them on fire. And they wanted to know whether they're allowed to, because in a way they're destroying Jewish property. Can I save myself with my friend's money? Now, interesting. They weren't stealing the money. They were destroying the money, right? They were setting on fire. So from here we see, remember I told you there's a big argument. There's an Aveda in causing someone damage. And what is the Aveda? Is it Aveda? So here, I tell you one opinion is Gzela. Here, the Gemara says it's like Gzela. You're not allowed to save yourself with your money and your friend. You're not allowed to save yourself with the money of your friend. But you're a king. As a yid, you're not allowed to, but as a king, you're allowed to. Now, this is very hard to understand. What do you mean you're not allowed to save yourself? You're allowed to pikuach nefesh except for the Avedas. What do you mean you're not allowed to save yourself? But the Rashi takes the Gemara literally. Rashi says on the very last line, you're not allowed to save yourself with one of your friends. That means Gzela is the 4th thing that you're not allowed to do in order to save yourself. Other Hashem have a hard time with that. So Tosha says the question wasn't whether you're allowed to. Of course you're allowed to. I'm going to quote you the Toshas, the penultimate Toshas on the page. The question was Ichayiv l'shalem. Of course you're allowed to, but do I have to pay you? Maybe there's a mitzvah here, and you, the owner, you have like we had a few days on Mavrei Chari. You're the owner, and you're fulfilling a mitzvah, saving my life. I don't have to compensate you for that, or no, I have to pay you for that. That's the shayla. I have to pay you, or I don't have to pay you. So that's how most of Shainim learn. Of course, you're allowed to save yourself because the Gemara says only 3 things that you're supposed to die for, which actually is a bit difficult to understand because we did have a 4th thing in the Gemara Ksubis, and after you test it, Rav Meir holds about Adim signing false on a document that maybe they should rather die because they're making themselves a shame by saying, "Oh, we were forced into signing false documents." Signing a false document is like stealing in a way because they're causing somebody a loss. And Rav Meir says that yes, you have to die. So there is an opinion that when it comes to stealing, you're supposed to die. And maybe this Gemara here follows the view of Rav Meir. So I'm not sure why nobody brings that up. But that's possibly why Rashi holds that it takes it literally. Another opinion, but what happened was there was a pile there of barley that belonged to Yidis. There was a pile of lentils that belonged to the Plishtim, and lentils was a lot more than barley. The covered boiling. This was the question. Can they use can they use the barley of the yid for gift to feed their animal? Amanas l'shalom gideshin shaladoshim the plishtim, and pay them back with the lentils of the plishtim. That even though you pledge to pay back, the fact is you're a Russia for doing that. So some of the Shayim say this is only because they didn't yet acquire the lentils. But if they acquire the lentils and they're going to pay back for stealing the barley, they're going to pay back with the lentils, which is worth a lot more than barley, then there's not another area here, which is interesting. If you're going to steal something in order to return it, you're not allowed to. We're going to have an Neshech and all that. But if you steal something in order to pay back more, it seems according to some poskim that you're allowed to. And here's talking about because they didn't own yet the granary of the lentils, the question is can they or not? Russia is a Russian. Again, you're a king, you're exceptional. I won't stop you. The one that says that the question is, can you swap over, I'll pay you back the lentils for the barley. The two psukim, they repeat the same story twice in two parts of Tanakh. And in one place it says it's talking about a pile of barley, and one place it says we're talking about lentils, because this is the story. They wanted to pay back the Jewish farmers their barley with the lentils from the Plishtim. That's the story. To burn it down. What do you tell me two different stories? Barley and no, that's the story. There were two piles. One pile was barley, one pile was lentils. They both belonged to the Eden, and the question was, can you burn them down or not? And one was worth much more money than the other one. The question was, can you burn both of them down? Okay, fire. He saved them. What do you mean he saved them? By saying that you're not allowed to burn them down, means you're not allowed to kill them. You saved them at Mitzrayim. And Rashi learns the last line, it means that we're going to burn it. So this is a raya to Rashi that we're not going to burn it. Not like Tais that you're going to burn it, the question whether you have to pay. Here, the Vayatzil is referring to the Plishtim, and you save their lives. Or, according to Tais, Vayatzil means you save the farmer because you're going to pay back the money. What do you mean you saved? Even what do you mean you saved? You're anyway paying back. The question is only can you pay him back with the lentils? So he says still Vayetzil is because he saved their original, that their barley was still intact. You have two psukim. Why need two psukim? Tell me about the granaries barley thing. We believe there were two questions. So we'll stop here and we'll continue tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem. Have a good day.